All right, hello, friends. Fujo here, back with Gaming Dad Fujo Podcast, episode number 3. I am Fujosevic, your host, former professional Hearthstone player, current analytical chemist, and today we will be talking about a little bit of a gaming update, a little self-indulgent talk from me. We're going to be talking about some interesting gaming stories, including Pokemon Nuzlocke, Star Citizen, chess, the pieces that just move around on a board, and one kind of scary science story. Ooh, so scary. Let's get started. He's got no time to play video games. He's the gaming dad, Fujo. Nailed it. All right, we're going to jump into some gaming updates, which will, of course, include some where the heck have you been updates. That'll be very quick, though. I was planning to be recording in September, and then that slipped to October, November. It's now December. So what happened back then? I was playing Hearthstone. We hit Legend once or 2 months in a row in August time. In September, my phone stopped working in connecting to Hearthstone. I'm not able to log into Hearthstone on my phone anymore, and my phone is basically the only way I play Hearthstone. I don't sit down on my computer very often anymore, unfortunately, but pretending and trying my best to be an adult. So I get stuck in this infinite loop of I try and log on to Hearthstone on my phone and it says you have to authenticate your login, which I have the authenticator because I've played other Blizzard games which make me do that. So I go to my authenticator and I press OK, authenticate. Then I go back to Hearthstone and it says loading, and then it says OK, now you need to authenticate. So I go to my authenticator, and you can see how this just loop continues forever and ever. I've tried logging in a whole bunch of different ways through actual Battle.net. I've tried to uninstall, reinstall, all sorts of fun stuff. Nothing's working. So I'm basically done with Hearthstone, unfortunately, which is too bad because I was kind of having fun with the meta. I did on my last month when I was still playing. I made it to rank 1 with 3 stars 5 separate times. This was before the most recent updates, so if I talk about that meta, it's kind of not really useful. I lost to 4 spooky mages out of the 5 attempts. One of them was a Relic Demon Hunter, but I know there's Death Knights and all sorts of new fun stuff. So there's no need for me to talk about that meta anymore since it's all kind of moved on. I did very quickly, briefly look at Magic the Gathering Arena, getting that on my phone, but I just didn't want to. We've been down that road. I don't want to go through that game, and it's obviously more intense than Hearthstone. We're not going to go down there. So what else have we been doing? I started playing Tunic on the Nintendo Switch. It's a lot of fun. It's a really cool top-down action-adventure type of game, kind of like the Legend of Zeldas, at least the top-down versions of Legend of Zeldas, obviously. It has some very Dark Souls-esque combat with dodges and a couple different items that you can use, lots of different secrets, hidden paths with different things to discover. It's really interesting. There's a really cool speedrunning community that will spoil all sorts of different hidden secrets and things that you won't discover the first time through your gameplay, and then all of a sudden you'll make a turn, you'll say, oh, wait a second, this is where I walked into the dungeon. It's very, very cool. And you can kind of, once you get into this pattern, kind of start exploring places a little bit differently the first time you go into a dungeon. So it's a really, really cool game. Very challenging. Still haven't beaten it, but I'm hoping to at some point. And that's kind of all I've been playing other than Super Mario Maker 2. But again, we talked about this before. It's very hard for me playing that game very casually to talk about it at any level. I know people talk about the most intense Mario Kaizos, but I'm nowhere near that level of skill because I don't have nearly the time and obviously skill to do that. One thing I did want to talk about, gaming related also, was the Nintendo Direct. And this was back from September 13th because, like I said, I was planning on recording on the 13th, or after the 13th at least I should say. And the only thing of really note from there is that the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel was announced. So we'll be talking about that for sure as more information comes, because it is definitely something that I'm interested in and will be playing. I'll figure out a way to talk about that. I think those sort of adventure games will probably be easier to discuss and talk about as opposed to I picked up a Koopa shell and I threw it up and I twirled, and that probably won't be as interesting. Okay, let's move on to our first gaming story that we're going to talk about. There were 2 former Nintendo Minute hosts. They hosted some videos for Nintendo of America on YouTube and put out content for them. And they recently said that the Pokemon Company feels that Nuzlocke, I'll explain in a second, are just as bad as ROM hacks. Nuzlocke are basically a way of playing Pokemon games with kind of your own defined limitations and rule set on it. You don't need anything else. You just need a regular game, and you can play it with any sort of fun sort of Nuzlocke rules. So we know Pokemon games are kind of, I want to say, straightforward, linear, compared to some other RPGs. So you can basically Nuzlocke. The basics are going to be, it's going to be hardcore mode. So if any of your Pokemon faint, they're done. You can only catch the first Pokemon that you encounter per route. So you're limited. You can't just say, oh, I really need this, I don't know, Clefairy for whatever reason. I'm just going to keep farming this little area of Zubats until I find one. No. If you run into a Zubat, that's the only thing you're allowed to catch on that route. So it's very restrictive there. People do all sorts of things where they'll do grass-only Nuzlocks, water-only, to extra little restrictions on them to make it more challenging. But all you need is an actual game. You need an actual cart and you can do it. And so it's really kind of interesting and really out of touch, I feel like, for the Pokemon company to say that they're just as bad as ROM hacks. I can understand a company not being happy about someone taking their content and hacking it and modifying it and distribute. I can understand that, even though we can have a whole separate ROM hack debate. And again, we know the legality of it. If you own the original content, I know you're allowed to stream it on Twitch and post content on YouTube, so at least that way you won't get in trouble for sure. But it's just very interesting that even just playing the game that a company has made with your own predefined rules, just to make it more interesting, to have more people playing it and continue to be playing it. And these actually, if you search these things on YouTube, there's a lot of views for a lot of these. So it's a very interesting and popular topic. So it's very strange when any company would do anything negative against potential extra content of extra eyeballs on their product. Because guess what? If I was watching that and I was like, you know what? I've never played Pokemon Silver. Maybe I'm going to go like, now, obviously there's no more Pokemon Silver copies for me to pick up except secondhand. But that's a separate issue because, I could only buy them from someone else and they're not making any money off of it. And I get that. But it's just interesting, and I think backwards to not want more people more interested in your product. And then we don't need to talk about the whole Pokemon. What are the new ones? The new ones that came out for Switch, Scarlet, Violet, with the performance issues and stuff. Maybe a little good press right now would probably help. But that was just kind of interesting so these hosts said they were almost threatened with job security issues if they were to talk about Nuzlocks and then actually do a Nuzlocke as part of the official Nintendo content, which is just so backwards. When Nuzlocks are very popular, there's a big audience for it, and then it could just get more people interested. And it just, I don't know, this was an interesting story to me because I think a lot of games nowadays can pick up traction when you have large social media content pushing it. There's a lot of games that just, maybe are dwindling along, and then some big streamers and big YouTube people will be able to find some fun things to do in those games, and there's a lot of eyeballs, and then there's a lot more people going to download and pay and buy these games. And so it's like anything any company can do to get interest has to be a good thing. Maybe Pokemon's too big that they don't need to worry or care, but I thought it was an interesting story. And like I said, probably a little backwards, but that's fine. We'll see if anything else comes of this. We'll follow this one along, but it just seems backwards to me. Next topic, Star Citizen. Star Citizen is a multiplayer space trading combat simulation game. It's been in development for over 10 years. It has raised, which is not really, that's not really an interesting story, right? Any game that's just been in development for a long time. However, and they have a GoFundMe, and there's, help fund us, and we can continue to develop this and put out this incredible product. They have raised $500 million in funding, and they continue to release different alpha builds of their game. They're not even at the stage where we're saying, this is our beta, come and test it out, we're going to release the real thing soon. They're still releasing alpha versions, which is massive. Which is absolutely massive. And I think when you do the math, it is, for the number of people who have donated, they would each need to have donated at least $100 in order to get to that 500. It's just a massive amount of money. And again, these developers have not just stolen the money and run and done nothing with it. We're not saying that, obviously. They're continuing to put out content, but it's just obviously it was such a big task what that game was trying to do and what it continues to try to be. And it's over 10 years, over $500 billion, $500 million worth of resources, and they're still putting out alpha builds. It's a really, really head scratcher to understand how that could happen. But again, like, I mean, people are playing it and some people are enjoying it, and you can look up online for yourself if you're interested. There's some people complain it's buggy, it's laggy, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. And you say, well, it's an alpha build. Well, it's been over 10 years and there's $500 million of funding to potentially help push this through, but those are staggering numbers for any game development. Obviously, I'm not, I don't know coding nearly that well, but it's just, that is incredible. Those are huge numbers. Oh, very quickly, I didn't mention it at the top, but there was a very big, also, again, this was like September time of 2022, there was a GTA 6 leaker who got a whole bunch of GTA 6 data and information and posted some screenshots. They were formally charged by police for what they did there. Those were online all over the place. Obviously, interesting, highly, really, really going to be a popular game considering how long GTA 5 has survived and thrived with its online community and everything that it's done. Talking about some ROM hacks there, you can see some funny stuff people do there. But GTA 6, clearly, obviously in development, and the person who did leak that was charged by police. But again, this is an old story, so we can kind of just skim over it. Now let's move on to chess. Not the traditional type of gaming that I would normally talk about, but this is an interesting one. So again, September 2022. I'll record something in a week, or a couple weeks, and then we'll get up to date with our stories. So there was a September 2022 chess tournament. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Sinquefield Cup. I'm going to mispronounce a couple names here. I apologize for anyone who is aware of the story better than I am. So there was chess grandmaster Magnus Carlsen. He's very popular online. You've probably seen him streaming on things if you're online and stuff like that. And he was playing against the current world champion. I'm going to mispronounce this name, Hans Niemann. And so Carlsen took a loss in their third round matchup and dropped out of the tournament. Out of this, there have now come a whole bunch of accusations that Hans Niemann is using devices in order to cheat in real life tournaments. There's obviously ways to cheat in online tournaments. And we've seen this, obviously we'll talk about the chess specific example, but we've seen this in a whole bunch we've seen this in Hearthstone, actually. Tying this back to Hearthstone, since that's what we know and what we're known for. There've been people caught cheating in Hearthstone, stream sniping, things like that. Obviously in tournaments, even with delays, if you just play super slow, potentially you can see your opponent's opening hand and you're tracking cards in their hand. Anyways, so these people here who are potentially being accused, who are being accused of cheating in chess, have some sort of device somewhere on or in their body placed, which is allowing them to have their moves in their board state input into computers. And generally, computers will beat most players, even the grandmaster levels. We've seen this for many years. I'm not going to go through the history. I don't have the history in front of me to discuss it, but generally, computers win at this day and age when it comes to chess. And there have been accusations now about this player. And there were some moves made where if you know chess, there are moves which make sense to put you into a stronger position, to make certain trades, things like that, to set yourself up for a trade unless your opponent moves away. It's a very obvious. I don't know if you're aware of this. Chess is actually a complicated game. That might surprise you. That might surprise you right there. So some of the moves have been called into question that some of these players have been making. And chess.com has actually crunched some of the numbers from a bunch of these games. And they say there are basically 100 or so games that have been called into question. Because they've said these are the moves that the computer would make and generally no human would make. And when they just see a large enough sample size, things get called into question. So this to me is a very, very interesting story where in the world of chess, where you think it's, the straw, the brightest of the bright are challenging each other. There's obviously, what's that old saying? If you're not cheating, you're not trying. Well, clearly here, people are going to try and push things to the limit. You got to push it to the limit sometimes. And then, yeah, actually, as a follow-up to this story from the initial September tournament, there was actually October 20th, there was a lawsuit filed against Carlson, his company, chess.com, a bunch of other people, for defamation. So that's actually, obviously these are very strong accusations. The people who at this level are going to, like I said, these chess players, you can look it up on Twitch and YouTube. People are posting, analysis, live streams, having fun with that sort of stuff. And and I get it, we live in a litigious world, for better or for worse. I'm not saying one way or another, but these things happen, and obviously there can be an impact if your reputation is called into question. And then you're not able to potentially benefit in the future from everything that you might, from whatever your fame and following may be. So that's actually a very interesting story, that something like this would be happening in the world of chess, which in my mind was always so pure, and clearly not, which again, not really that big of a surprise. Okay, and then you know what? We're not going to finish there. I was going to say we're finishing. Let's finish with a very scary and spooky science story, which actually maybe I shouldn't be making a silly spooky voice, because this is actually a very scary story. The Alaska snow crab season was canceled, as officials are reporting a disappearance of over 1 billion crabs in the Alaskan Bering Sea. That's a huge amount of food. There's a lot of economic impacts. There's a lot of food impacts. There's a lot of ecological impacts in terms of the food chain, what's happening. I know we talked about a little bit how do we look at things scientifically? Well, we don't have the answers of what happened. We know we do have data that fishermen, the fishing reports have been coming back smaller and smaller for the past few years in recent year data. However, this is a massive drop off, and scientists and everyone's still trying to understand, did the crab move farther north to colder water, closer to the Arctic Circle? Was there some sort of massive dying off, some massive potential like extinction level die-off, disease? Was it warmer water temperatures causing these deaths or diseases to take root, whatever it is? But the information we do have is that the Alaska king crab season was canceled for 2022. And that's a large, again, it's the bottom of the ocean in the Pacific. Well, we're all connected. So that's actually a scary, kind of very, very scary story. Hopefully they just all move north to colder waters and they can be found, and we can figure out a way to sustainably keep having our crabs. I think I only ever have crab at maximum once a year. So again, it would be easy for me to just say, well, I don't care. I guess I don't need to have that. And that's true, I don't need to have it, but it would have larger impacts than my once a year dinner when I splurge and have some crab legs. So that's actually kind of a scary story of, what might be happening. Of course, we don't have all the information, but we just know no crabs right now. So that's also one that I'm probably going to follow up on as well, just because it's a scary, scary thing that's happening, and obviously very large potential impacts for us. So let's end on that positive note. I am going to be doing another quick recording sometime soon, sometime over the holidays. I'm going to get this will be up before the holidays. So I'm going to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. I am going to make a New Year's resolution now that I will be posting more regularly, recording and uploading more regularly. I think my original plan was in September, just so might as well more self-indulgent talk. My plan was to post September, October, November, every single time, just talking about the fact that, hey, I'm going to do a quick live stream I was thinking either New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. Just pop on. I was even thinking just YouTube. We don't even have to go to Twitch to do it. We'll just do a quick live stream on YouTube, say hi to people. I'll just have Hearthstone up in the background. I'll hang out for a couple hours, see if anyone wants to pop by and say hi, because I miss being able to do all of that and just say hi to everyone. And obviously I haven't been able to do that, so there's no point probably, but maybe I will get another video up in a few weeks, and we'll figure out a time where I can do a quick live stream. Maybe I'm thinking March, just because then, there was 3 months for my original play and 3 months from now till March. Lovely. Math works. Okay, everyone. I hope you're all doing well out there. Please stay safe, be good to each other, and hopefully we will be able to talk very, very soon. Bye-bye. All right, that was pretty good. I didn't mention Love Island once.